So, Tave, you just joined us, and I'm making sure that, well, I feel like Christina and Cindy Hardenweiss, because they did an envelope opening.
Mhm.
As I mean, they it didn't look like they had already opened the envelope, to peek inside to see what they were going to see. And
Mhm.
so she's slitting it open. They're talking about,
Rex calling
well,
me.
we just got this in the mail. And I saw that posted out on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, I already have mine. I guess I'm just special. And I'm not special. What I had was a very special, wonderful guest, Laurette Clyer, who said, hey, can we come in together? So, oh my
So
goodness, Tave and, well,
glad.
Chicken and Dumpling do not have to introduce themselves to each other.
That was the first thing that Christine said. Like, are you chicken or are you dumpling? And I said she had to guess.
Oh, yeah,
Important information.
yeah. If you haven't determined that from like actually reading it, I'd love to know what you think just after this. How about after your thing or towards the end of? You could say, oh, based on today, I think you are chicken and you are dumpling.
Okay, I'm going to peek. I'm going to peek because I've been slowly reading through your magazine that you two put together. I get to hear the whole story, but if it looks like I'm not paying attention to what you're saying, it's because I'm looking ahead. I've been literally reading 1 2 page spread at night if I, think of it, before lights out, and just going, how calm, how reassuring. Oh, how interesting. I don't even like Sudoku, but I think I could handle this maybe just in my brain. Oh, this is, just what was this about? Oh, Tave wrote it. Kind of, just I've been interacting with you too and thinking about the people that I have provided assistance to and also provided peace of mind to their loved ones. And I'm thinking of a particular person right now, and I'll simply say there was a spouse, and both of them were born before I was. And if I could have given this to the spouse, which is why I'm in the situation I am now of meeting people like you and going, oh, there's so many resources, but I didn't know about it. I was simply a caregiver in Oregon. And here you are. You were less than 2 hours from where I was doing that hired caregiving. Yippee! Laurette,
She is.
you have arrived. And the great
Congratulations.
thing is, you all know each other. So I'm really busy right now checking to try to figure out which one is chicken and which one is dumpling in this magazine. So I'm going to start with Nikki because she popped onto the screen first,
All right.
and so you win.
Stay still.
And
Oh, yeah, try.
it, the folks that are watching and listening, if they think they know everything about you, you can throw in some other little tidbit or something. So it's like, ooh, good thing I watched this. But most people do not know about you, and I didn't know about you. So Nikki, go for it.
Well,
I'm
all
gonna
right,
figure
and
this out.
I'll let Tave. And I often will kind of hand stuff off to Tave too, if I kind of, we play off each other a lot.
You're not going to tell about
Okay.
you. You're going to tell about you today.
Tell about
right?
me personally, or no, the magazine, because they're intertwined at this point. But I can. Okay, here's what I can say. My name is Nikki Jordan. I am from. I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm from the Bay Area originally, and a few years ago, my aunt, who I'm very close to, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and we moved her down here to be closer to me because I was the only available family member to help her on this journey that she's on. And so that was sort of the start of this whole venture. I was noticing that she wasn't able to access the reading that she liked to do, magazines and things like that. And so I have a publishing background, I have a writing background, I was a managing editor for a local magazine, and so it was a natural, link from A to B to to create something that I wanted to see that didn't exist. I was looking for reading materials that were available for people with cognitive change, and there wasn't anything out there.
Right.
There was a woman that was doing some nice chapter books, and but Rebecca was not into chapter books. It wasn't really her thing, and so she liked magazines. I like magazines, and so I wanted to create a magazine essentially, and so that was back in, was it 2018, Tave? Something, was it 2017?
Technically 2017.
Yeah,
Mhm.
something like that.
Hmm.
So it took us a while to kind of get it going. COVID came in and sort of stopped the work that I was doing. Tave and I are also in a couple of bands together, and so we had all these shows that got canceled, and so we had time to really delve in. And I needed, for me, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, and you can ask whatever you want to ask, but I'm a writer. I'm not a graphic designer. I don't do, it's not my thing. I wanted this magazine to look stunning. I needed the images to be uh, gorgeous. I needed the layout to be clean and easily, readable. So Tabe is our lead singer in the band that we are also in together, and she also did a lot of our graphics, posters, and things like that. So it was again a natural slide for me to ask, "Would you be willing to come and help me with this?" And so thankfully she said yes, and that is sort of how all this happened. And we published our first issue. Now it's almost 2 years ago. So June 2021 was our first issue, and we are currently working on volume 8. Volume 7 just came out. So and it's been a tremendous fun and tremendous learning, and we're still learning. And that's what I have to say about that. And I'm a drummer, if you want to know a fun fact about me.
Do you sing and drum at the same
I
time
do not.
like Karen Carpenter?
No, certainly not Karen Carpenter's talent on either front, the drumming or the singing, or Levon Helm. None of that. I can't do any of that. I probably could if I really tried, but there's really great singers in our band. I certainly don't need to be mucking around with that nonsense. Tommy's always trying to put a microphone in front of me because that is her nature, to just like, and she's also trying to get me to do, some sort of solo, but I'm also not doing that. But anyway.
There you go. I was saying to you just as we were starting, you can give a little something that maybe people who go, "Oh yeah, I know all about her." Maybe they didn't know that. So this is, I often say, born of grief, or frustration.
I can't hear.
It was, necessity, as a mother of invention or whatever, but you love your aunt and you don't want her to be without what she enjoys.
Right.
So you made one. I
did.
love it. And Tave, there you were, already friends, already 10 minutes away from each other as far as front door to front door. So Tave, do you remember when she first started talking about this, or was there kind of that moment that you were like, "Oh, I can envision this. I understand now that someone who is challenged cognitively, and there's a lot of ways to be challenged cognitively or visually, I can see what this would be like." So I wanted to say one thing about the front, Tave, and then I'm going to let you talk about that. And that is, there's nothing here that makes me think, "Oh, this is not, an engaging adult piece of, whatever." I mean, this just looks like, "Oh, this would look so good on those stands in the grocery store." People going, "What is this one about?" Is it travel? Is it painting? So I'm really enjoying your work.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to hear that. That's always the goal with everything we do, from comic strips to music to magazines. But I 100% remember when this first started because our band, Girl Haggard Band, which is it's an all-girl, all-Merle Haggard tribute. And we were playing up in Washington. We had a we had a festival. We were playing in Washington, and Nikki's aunt had just gotten diagnosed, and it was basically it was on all of our minds. And there was the talk of her getting moved down and how this was going to come about. Just the ins and the outs of the whole thing, as you can imagine. Everybody's sort of trying to wrap your mind around any kind of diagnosis. And so we had talked about it for quite a while. And then I started thinking about it more and more. He approached me about the graphic designing. And I said, yeah, I have some other ideas for this too. What about, we also do a website. What about we also have audio narration? What about we also have
very good.
this sort of bonus content the way we do? And then Nikki was like, and I really want to make sure we get these puzzles in here for some of our activities could be puzzle oriented. And then let's just build on it. She had taken when we did our first prototype, when she did her first prototype, I should say, she'd taken these photos of us from a tour we'd done in Idaho. And she and I stayed an extra day, and we're like flouncing around in the middle of rural Idaho, general stores and the like. And she put together the very first chicken and dumpling comic strip. And I laughed so hard. That's how this whole thing has grown. My background, my mother has multiple sclerosis. I used to raise and train service animals. So in that world, but I also have ADHD. So I know exactly what it's like to be wanting to access things. And for anybody, having been an educator and in that realm also, with students of different ages, young all the way through adults, that are trying to make sense of something from English as a second or an extra language perspective. And so putting all of that in and saying Mirador is actually for anybody. I shouldn't say anybody. Mirador is for everybody who likes interesting content, ad-free publications, short, clear articles, engaging puzzles, and fun images. So our thing is Mirador, and Nikki had pulled that name Mirador, and Mirador is how you pronounce it in Spanish. Mirador. So it's like a lookout, a light, and that's Nikki's piece of it, wanting this to be a lookout for people, a beacon of light in some way. It's the light even under your covers when you're reading at night and you don't want to wake up your parents, your husband, your whomever it is, your people that you're sharing a bunk room with on winter holiday, when they're all coming in from all over the country to go to the mountain. It's that sort of thing. But it also sounds like a mirror, a door, mirador. So it's reflecting back at you, and it's you standing there looking out, and it's a place you can go out from. And we like to say we're making connections. So it's within yourself, with the people around you, and with the outside world. So that's our goal. And then artistically, I'm just trying to come at it and make it interesting, make sure that the colors work for people that are having either brain change or who are neurodivergent for one reason or another.
Exactly.
And the font and the lettering and what the content placed next to it, how that all works for different brains, basically. And so we're a magazine for all those people. We're a magazine for you. We're a magazine for your loved one. So similar to, I want to say, an old Warner Brothers cartoon. A parent could walk in and enjoy that as much as the child could. We want to be that for the sandwich generation. People who are taking care of youngers, people who are taking care of olders, people who aren't taking care of anybody. They just want to enjoy it themselves, or they want to share it with somebody and not have the other person go, oh my goodness, Jiminy Christmas, I don't want to look at that. So that's the story.
A 9-year-old who wants to interact with a 90-year-old and reversed. There it is. There it is. You brought me back to something that I usually missed as a hired caregiver, and that is that moment, that week, when the diagnosis drops and there's a heaviness, an emptiness, a frustration, anger, confusion, wringing of hands, starting a mourning, a grieving process. And Laurette, you're the one, you made today happen because you were in a different group of a conversation.
Right.
And
right.
you said, "Can I come back with some friends?" Yes.
Right.
And then when
right.
you told me who, I'm going, I have been watching them, peeking at them through LinkedIn. So, wow, this is marvelous. I'm so glad to be screen to screen with you again. The whole moment of diagnosis or realization or life from now on changes, and I care, I love, I'm trying to figure out, did that play into your situation as also an author who's really intentional about the way that you put your publications together?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can. Oh, and I want to say before I interrupt you again, Deanna Kriz came in and said hi from Chicago. And she used to encourage me when I sat kind of quivering and shaking in front of my microphone and tried to talk about why I was doing all these social media things now as in after my era of in-home caregiving, and she would just pop in and just say little things, and I'm really happy to see her again. Thank you, Deanna. Thanks for letting me know that you're there. So I gave you a starting spot, but run with it, Laurette.
I mean, I found a gap in the marketplace so purely by accident. I was a career educator, grant writer. My mother-in-law was living in Massachusetts with Lewy body dementia. She was an avid reader, and she was a bridge player and a walker. She loved to walk. She lives in a coastal town with her neighbors and friends. And what happened is that she became othered very quickly when she, when she was experiencing cognitive change. So what was happening is that she read the Boston Globe every morning from front to back. She read the Patriot Ledger, her local paper, from front to back, and it was kind of her oracle for what was going on around her in her world. And that was sitting unopened by her door when she was in long-term care. But then she moved up to a memory unit, and because she was rapidly declining, and I could see that the agitation was building, the sadness was building. I think she was feeling very isolated and said so. So what I tried to do was I tried to bring her beautiful art. She loved art and language, beautiful language, and tried to format it in such a way that she could engage with it and she could enjoy it and she could find success. Frustration-free text, as Tavi was saying, and just the fonts are so intentional, the sizes, the layouts, so it could be something that wasn't overwhelming her with that large, the quadruple fold, right, of the newspaper. So the double height and the double width. So this was, let's say cut down to size. And lighter weight magazine size. And what really bothered me was where she was a fine place, excellent place. She had like some old Good Housekeeping magazines and some old children's board books that were repurposed and some bead runs. And I thought, this really is just getting her down. And that's kind of how I began. I began from there, and I really based it in her identity, her past. She was one of originally 4 children that grew up in Southie and in a really tough circumstances, tough time, single mom, and they didn't really have much of anything. So I really believe that her identity was really tied up in her books and her, she used to say she liked to have her things about her, which I thought was so sweet. And then she went on to have 6 children of her own. She married at 19, a son of 13. So these are people from very large families who carved out their own place in the world. And my husband's first generation college. So really they were just self-made people trying to make it, and a lot of them relied, as so many of us do, on the daily paper and just what was going on in the world. So when that was taken away, I think that was very dispiriting for her. So my books, they center around poetry and prose and beautiful artwork. If you'll never walk the halls of a museum again, or you'll never forest bathe again, or you'll never walk out in nature again because you're in a locked unit and you're limited in that way. This opens up, it throws open that window to you and lets you into this beautiful vista and back into nature. And it helps you connect. It gives you the visual and auditory cues with which to scaffold a conversation. When you have aphasia and you're having trouble word finding, you need these supports. So I'm really intentional about that as well. In addition to, as Nikki was saying, really wanting this aesthetic and wanting, because people retain their preferences, their aesthetics, their sensibilities, just all the things that make them them and things that they prefer to do and prefer to have around them. So these are very important bits of identity is what I call them. I heard that I went to a talk and a woman from the New London Homeless Hospitality Center was saying that when people are experiencing homelessness, they lose Vibi. And I thought, what's that? And it's very important bits of identity, which means we, Nikki and I and Tabby and I have talked about a cigar box. And we were saying how people, when you move from place to place and you move through life, like the movie Paper Moon, you've got your important things in your cigar box and the things that are touchstones and talismans. And that's why people get so upset when they say, where are my rings? Or, there are different things that they're missing when they're living with dementia, or they're feeling as though they're missing. And it's something that you carry with you through life. So if we can do something that's evocative and that's strong and that's soothing and that can give people those visuals and those sights and sounds that they enjoyed and loved so much, that's the nature of this work. And that's kind of it's a full complement of, it's multimedia. We've all got a digital component. I have the digital bookshelves, the library that people can access. Mirador, and we haven't talked yet about Reminisce books, Ann Aubitz's Reminisce, which are chapter books. This is the one that she's done, which is romance, and it's absolutely lovely. She has Kirkhouse Publishers. And then we've got Eric Kolb has Songs and Smiles, which is another magazine, which is got, again, nice visual points of reference for people. And just, again, he's got a little bit of modified poetry here. So where this might be better for somebody who's a little bit later stage, who wants to do things independently, Mirador might be a little bit earlier, or could be used throughout with a caregiver. It's just so nice for people to have these selections and to be able to self-select and to have that autonomy, have that freedom. Like we all do. You have a stack of books and magazines next to your bed and seed catalogs and LL Bean and all the things you like. Right. What we're striving to do is give people a full complement of books and magazines that they can engage with and they can enjoy and they can share. And that's pretty much where we come in.
What was the name of the gentleman with the carrots? You just showed the carrots.
So this is Songs and Smiles, and it's Eric Kolb, Kolb.
I'll make sure that I put that when I put this out on replay. I'll make sure that I put in his name. And was it Ann Abbott?
Aubitz, and these are Reminisce books. That's her logo on the back.
Oh, wonderful.
And we've kind of come together as a collective because we've got a variety of things. We want people to have the best and the most diverse. We've all got lots of diversity in our books, a lot of inclusive, just the way it's just handled from start to finish is inclusive. It's just visually really pleasing and really so much love has gone into it. So I think we've got a little something for everyone here. And I'd love to see places, since COVID, senior engagement technology has come so far, and therapeutic television and chair yoga and pasta grannies, and it's amazing what's come to the fore. However, there is this space where people who love books and love to read, this is what we're really striving to bring back, is this, the magazines have been taken out of the emergency room and the dental clinic and the the day room. Books, the book cart doesn't go around anymore. So we're really striving to bring back these quality, beautiful materials. It's a whole new era, I feel, in publishing for older adults and for people that are living with cognitive challenges of all ages. And it helps to bridge the generations because, this is something that we can connect around and enjoy together. And it starts a conversation that we may never have had.
My mother, 91, she experienced yet another power outage. Did that hit you guys, Tave and Nikki? Because she is Portland. I don't know if it was just in her neighborhood. Anyway, she got it back after several hours. So during that time, she doesn't really have screen access due to everything, being able to access the internet. I mean, maybe her computer battery will work for a while, but to get into anything new. So she always has a basket of paper publishing something that she can work on, reread, etc. And, with daylight or a candle or whatever, battery operated luminary, she can have something to do during those times. I guess I would have to say I agree with both, that going paperless is very helpful in many different ways, but having those pages, there's something in the turning of pages, in the referencing, popping open, being able to sketch a drawing. When you sent me that, I've got it here. You just sketched, Nikki, when you sent me the Mirador, you just put a little, was that Nikki or was that Tave that sent that?
That was me.
That's one of Nikki's. Mine are a little more, I don't know what we want to call them.
There's expressive and then there's expressive. So what I'm hearing is that these publications are giving a person a tour through a museum, a walk through nature, even with Chicken and Dumpling, it's those same people. And look, they're with friends and they're playing gin rummy, or is that right? Did I say the right thing? Gin rummy?
Be whatever you want, really. It could be any game.
Whatever.
Yes.
But they're interacting with each other. Who are these people? And being able to imagine, they've been friends for years, or they just met at a park and they're at a picnic table, whatever it might be, to be able to have that joy welling up. Tell me the person and their characteristics that doesn't need some joy welling up, a springboard for their own creative thought. And you and others who are you the cigar box gang or something now? Is that what you're calling yourselves?
Well, we have been batting around. First, hi, Lorette. I didn't get to say hi to you.
Hi.
We're huge fans of Lorette's, and we were actually sort of introduced to her via Ann Obbitz. And Anne's chapter books, I want to say, are not the chapter books Nikki was referring to earlier.
That's not.
Anne's
These are new. These are brand new, and they are amazing.
They are amazing.
And huge fans of these because she'll have a mystery, she's got a romance, she's got different genres. Lorette has a suite of things. I mean, it's amazing. And so we're fans of these women. And then when Lorette said, hey, I've got this idea, let's get together. And I'm like, she's like, let's put together a portfolio we can offer people. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm confused. And she's like, I'm like, let's call it a co-op. She's like, no, that sounds childish. I'm like, I guess it sounds like a grocery store. And she said, let's call it a collective. And I said, that is the exact word. And we batted it around for a while. Then the three of us got together and we've been thinking of, terms. And I was a huge fan of the film Paper Moon. I carried my little bits around. We brought up cigar boxes. That's not necessarily something we're going to stick with, but we're batting it around. And the idea is something that you want to open over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Things that you want to open that are fun for you. There are ways for you to look back. There are ways for you to dream big. There are ways for you to share them with other people. So that's sort of where the cigar box came in. And so we're still talking. I don't know that we've determined, because we have Anne is involved as well in our collective. I don't even believe we've talked to Eric, who we're just gonna, try and bring him in specifically. But the idea is, look, when you go to a library, you don't just have one book. There's many things. There's different genres. There's different styles. Lorette, in and of herself, is a master at having a different each different book of hers offers something entirely different from one to the other. You can have all of them. You could have some of ours, some of hers, some of Anne's, some of Eric's. And then the idea is to also look through and say, we could be a resource to other people to say, this could work well for you. If these that we have work for you, this sort of thing might work as well. So that's a little bit about that. And then just to make sure we do shout out to everybody that's in our collective, our growing collective. And then additionally, I want to say a huge thank you to Tifa Snow, whose positive approach to care is what got this all started. Nikki and I went to a couple of in-person conferences prior to COVID, and she's just been a resource to everybody, in this field, but also very gracious and generous with us about doing one of the first reviews of our content. So thank you to her. One of her writers, Judy Stock, is on her core care team, the Positive Approach to Care core team. So thank you to her. We also would greatly want to make sure we thank Christine and Cindy Hardenweiss for doing the unboxing, but for doing all the work they do to showcase the different products and features that different companies or different groups or different nonprofits offer to the world. They're amazing. They are going to be in a chicken and dumpling someday. So big shout outs to them. And a huge shout out to you. The work you do is amazing. It's wonderful. The more we can all get together and get in one room and percolate these ideas and make something exciting and spread it out in the world, it's like a nice aroma. What a neat thing. So thanks to all of you. And thanks to everybody that's helped any of us with our prototyping when we were going into care facilities or talking to different groups, getting feedback. Anybody who's been involved in all of that. How does this artwork work for you? Is this seem accessible to you? What do you like? What would you change? And all of us, I think, are constantly doing this. We're constantly honing and trying to up our game, pivoting a little here or a little there as need be to make sure that we're really fitting our audiences. So thank you to all of you who are involved in that, and to the Spanish speaking community, because Nikki and I offer online in Spanish, and Lorette, we've all talked about offering multiple versions in different languages.
Right.
So as we all get further down the road, that's the goal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cognitive challenge doesn't have any boundaries at all, or cognitive diversity isn't just, it's always this, or or even if you seem this way, that's what's going on. There's just, people are so intricate. There's just so many things, and there are levels, and they'll change if it is, brought on by disease or injury. There's this could be part of someone's healing, physical healing, from a huge blow to the head, just to go, I'm hungry. My mind and my soul is hungry to take in information on my own terms. And this is happening for me right now. I get goosebumpy. I've been thinking this for about the last 20 minutes. By the way, we want to make sure that, should I call it Cigar Box Collective? Have you settled on?
Landed on necessarily a term, but it's kind of a watch this space sort of thing. So as far as the group, Mirador and Nana's books and Reminisce books, and we're going to just grab Eric in Songs and Smiles because he's doing really important work too.
Just do it.
And so it's kind of a watch this space. We're still working on the name, but I think more important, I think at this moment than the name is sort of the mission, which is, like you said, to provide accessible variety of materials for people, because I think that was what we've all experienced with the frustration of the board books and the childish, like, materials. I was
Yeah.
there. I have a lot of nostalgia about my own kidhood. Like, give me a tin of Tinker Toys and I'm thrilled. But it's like that's a choice that I want to play with those Tinker Toys. But at the
Right.
same time, or if I want to like revisit a kid's book that I read when I was 6. But with Rebecca, in particular with my aunt, um, she had a really hard time with her diagnosis. It was obviously a huge upset for her. She'd watched her own mother die of Alzheimer's. It was, she was an incredibly independent woman. She had a thriving business, and it was slowly getting taken away from her. And she was young. She was diagnosed when she was 63, just turned. So she was quite young and still incredibly vibrant in the community. And it was devastating for her. And it was not something that she wanted to acknowledge. And that's another thing around this sort of conversation is the stigma that we're also hoping to change with this, because unfortunately, she was so stigmatized by her diagnosis that she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want anything to do with anything that had the word dementia or Alzheimer's or anything, which is why it's really important for our materials that we don't, and Anne's materials and Lorette's, we don't say that. There's nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a diagnosis of dementia, but there are people, when you're experiencing it yourself, you don't necessarily want to be reminded of that constantly, because it's constantly, you're doing it. Tavi talks a lot about being colorblind. You want a book that maybe is accessible to a colorblind person, but doesn't have to be about color blindness in every single page, which is why Mirador is
very good.
We don't talk about it. It's just a book that's easier to read. It's a magazine that's easier to read. But what I'm getting to is that I did not want to give my aunt a child's book to read. It would have been incredibly insulting to her and devastating to her self-esteem. And so that is why I think we get very passionate about this subject. I know Lorette does too, about the board books in memory care facilities, because these are not children. They're not children. These are adults who are experiencing a cognitive challenge, and they should be treated as thus and should have the ability to have materials, reading materials, any kind of materials that are age appropriate for them. And so I'm going to tangent off, but it's like, but that's a big part of our mission too, as a group, is to make these things and these resources available to anybody that wants them, and so that they have choice. And so it's not just the board book and the childlike coloring page. We can make a cool looking adult coloring page that doesn't look like and we do that in our magazine. We have coloring pages that don't look like they came out of, a child's coloring book. There's nothing wrong with those, but they're not for my now 68-year-old aunt. Anyway, rant over.
Now 68. Good ranting. In just a moment, you've said that Lorette has a bunch of stuff. And so I'm not sure that I have fully taken that in. This is my second time with her. I want to do a little bit of hopeful predicting, futurizing a little bit. One, Teepa Snow herself ends up in Chicken and Dumpling. So
Well, that would be an absolute honor. And if she would be willing to do that, there is.
Oh, she would.
She would be. One of the things that we love about Teepa so much, when I've seen her perform, I say perform, but she was actually lecturing. But her seminars, when she was doing them live, when we saw them, the acting is extraordinary and so compassionate and so not condescending, and just really gets, she'd be a fantastic Chicken and Dumpling person.
And yet funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned the gin rummy. It's Najibe Tobar who's in that one with us. So Naji is she's a she's from Columbia, but she is the translator for all of Portland public schools. And she is
Really?
a world language instructor at Franklin High School. And we had taken some Spanish classes as it was like adult community Spanish classes with her. And we both were like, wow, like watch her, because she'd only speak to you in Spanish. And then she'd say these things like, and then I opened this book. And then she'd do her little thing. And you understood everything. It was so funny. And we said, this is with our band Chicken and Dumpling, which we also have. We said, let's get Nachi to be a guest artist in our band. So when that became a cartoon, we asked her and she said, oh, yes, like this. And the same was with Teepa. And we thought, wow, what an amazing actress. But she's doing it justice. What she's doing is she is educating you. She's just doing it in a way that you can take it in and absorb it. And it's poignant and it's funny and it's a little sad and it's all those things and it's wonderful. And so, gosh, we would be honored. We already have designs on Lorette for one as well. Maybe
no, I am honestly like look at her. When I'm in a public setting and yeah, I'm not like singing or doing any of the, I'm kind of not your lady for that. But what I will say is I absolutely think that what we're talking about here is congruence. And I was talking with Nikki about this. And when you have dementia or a cognitive challenge, your self-concept remains that you are who you've always been. Your abilities and what you're able to still do, you become incongruent in that way, and it becomes very frustrating. And what happens is these there are behavioral manifestations, there are behavioral expressions, and people say, oh, she was just confrontational, or she was nasty, or it's none of those things. It's someone who is trying to express the inside and make it match the outside, and their level of skillfulness in that, or their social, let's say their my mother-in-law, when her filter was slipping with the Lewy body dementia, and she was much more she wasn't as socially aware as she was. However, the beauty in that is that without that filter and without that social construct, and that she was, this doyenne of this family, and she was the matriarch, and she could just be herself and be relaxed and just let it fly and let her hair down. That is the window into which we see one another without that, let's say, that artifice or that, that need to feel like you have to put on your game face. So what I think we're trying to do with the books is to give people this, they're coming from a place of strength once again, because it's something that they have, let's say, in their long-term memory, that they are on solid ground with, and that they can, it's referential, they can refer back to it, and they can kind of lean on that, and they can once again become the authority and the trusted elder and the venerated elder that they are. So that creates that congruence, that strength, that and then when they see you again, perhaps they might not recall last time so much or recall who you are exactly, but they know how you made them feel, and they know how they felt when they were with you. So that's really that's job one, I think, with these publications. It's that invitation into an interlude, an experience, a visit, that whether it's virtually or the gold standard in person, you can emote like Teepa, you can be yourself, you can, like my mother-in-law, you can, tell a bawdy joke, you can be, funny and carefree and lighthearted. And it's really does, it's almost like that, those old radiators that you let the valve go and they just blow off that steam. And it's like so necessary for us all. So I think these visits are really life-giving when you can go in and you can have a laugh, and you can, like Carol Burnett said, and sing a song. If you can do those things together, I think that we can really improve care. I think that people that are living in a care setting in particular now, because of the staffing shortages, they're leaning into one another and they're getting to know one another, and they're forming these relationships where there's reciprocal teaching going on. The person, let's say, it's habilitative. The person, let's say, who has more aptitude in certain areas, maybe they can still read, and they'll read aloud to their friend, and they'll chat and they'll interface and they'll interact. That wasn't happening as much before. So if there is a silver lining, that I would say is a silver lining, is that people that are on your floor, like freshman year in college or whatever, you by necessity bond, right? And you form these relationships that are sustaining and that see you through. So I like to think that in residential care, long-term care, the silver lining, if there is one of the COVID pandemic, is that people are getting to know one another, and without these bits of identity from their pasts, let's say their clattering or a needlepoint or their books or the things that they had, their rugs and their overstuffed chair. Maybe these books are their bits of identity that bind them and that give them a jumping off point and an invitation into that conversation that they might not have had before. So I think that we're creating points of entry for people here.
You'd think that you all went and to universities and got degrees in how to do what you're doing. You are so you know why you're doing it, and you're describing it so well so that a person who has any bent, any talent in this area could go, I could do that. I could take this and make that happen. Oh my goodness, my loved one, or a situation that I was in for so long with the person, I didn't know what to bring I could create a similar thing, and then your collective could grow. And for sure, there is somebody somewhere, and it might be only an hour away from your front door, is creating a similar thing right now. I can only hope that someone will share this out to someone else who will go, wait a minute, that's just like so and so. They've been rewording, and I am bringing this to a particular point, is rewording the daily newspaper, typing it up in a way that their loved one can read it themselves and go, oh dear, is that what, I've been wondering how things are going in that part of the world or that part of the city. So this is my other future predictive thing. If it hasn't already happened, all these cities or states that want to be, or countries or provinces that are putting up a sign saying we are age friendly or we are diversity accessible, even once a week, if the local newspaper, the state newspaper, was reworded, reconfigured in such a way that it would help a person who has had multiple concussions. It helps a person who wears very specialized glasses to clearly see information, a person who's just hungry for information, or generations that I'm supposed to look at current events, and you're someone that can talk to me about how that relates to the past, all of that. I'm looking for the newspaper that's going to be the first one to say, and we offer a neurodiversity version on paper so that someone can do this.
That's the
Go,
thing.
oh,
That's the cool thing.
that I am glad they resolved that. That was really why, or boy, I'm glad I didn't invest in that one. Just even once a week, to be able to kind of see the events of the week, and it would be mailed to them. I bet all those lagging memberships, what do you call it? I've got a subscription. I bet those lagging subscriptions would boost up again, going, we want that in our facility. We want a newspaper that any human that's even working here can go, well, that's what's going on.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's having, it's like what what Lorette said, that self-selection. It's like being able to choose, you know. You go to the supermarket or you go to the bookstore and you'll see magazines for everything, for fashion, for angling, for whatever, camping. It's like there's all sorts of opportunity. And like Tavi mentioned, the library, like there's thousands, tens of thousands of books on all kinds of stuff. So I love that we're doing this. I was so excited to find, I mean, we all kind of started about the same time. We all kind of, there must have been sort of a global or at least a national thought bubble. It's like, oh, there needs to be something like this, because we've all sort of come up around the same time with our products. And so, yeah, more diversity and more of it. When you mentioned the newspapers, one of my long ago volunteer jobs, which was probably one of my favorite volunteer jobs, was it was for the I would go into the OPB, Oregon Public Radio studio, on Sunday afternoons, and they would have a section where they would have volunteers come and read the newspaper for the blind. It was for the blind audio network, and you would read like selections of the newspaper, but you'd also read the TV guide, because that wasn't available in Braille, and you would read the circular ads, ham on sale for 69 cents a pound. Yeah. And it was like, I loved it because, of course, because it wasn't available to people that were, if they were getting, if they were visually impaired, they weren't seeing those ads and those TV guides. And it was great. I loved it. I loved the inclusivity of it. And plus, who doesn't want to read the circular ads? It's much more fun to read them out loud. And I really had a good time doing it. And there were a couple of times when I was laughing so hard about something, the producer had to actually cut it. And I'm like, he's like, what is funny about that? I'm like, I don't know. There's something about the ham bone picture that's cracking me up right now. And I can't really go. And I wish they were on tape somewhere, because that was years ago.
One quick thing I'll add, I was a Peace Corps volunteer when I was younger in West Africa. And my friend used to get her little town paper, Port Royal, Pennsylvania. They would send her the local paper all the way overseas to West Africa. And it would take 2 months to get there. And we would sit out and we'd look through it, and we'd go through, and it'd be like 3 cans of green beans for $1. And we would think, it's like, I could just taste that green bean casserole. Or we'd think, I wonder who's going to be making what with this. Then we'd show them, to the friends and family that we had over there. And they would be like, well, that's like, what? Wait, what is that? Or that's really interesting. And so this too, right? These ways of sparking your imagination, having conversation, having something to continue to open that gives you joy. And, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be an Encyclopedia Britannica. Right? It doesn't have to be a kid's board book that's waterproof. You can, all of these in our collective can be opened over and over and over again. Or if you like one, maybe you want Lorette's on poetry. Maybe it's somebody who wants Lorette's for the veterans. Maybe, you want a different piece here. So there's a little something for everyone. And very lastly, before I forget, Kathy Laurenhue is another woman we want to bring in. She has Wise Now. And she has been doing the last, I think, at least 4 volumes of Mirador. But our Light News, we'll often say Light News by Wiser Now. She was Wiser Now Wednesday. And she has been doing this work and for this specific community for years. And I met her daughter, and she said, wait a minute, what you're doing is exactly what my mom has been doing. Let me put you in contact. So Kathy,
great.
And she's going through a rebrand, calling hers Wait Lifters, but it's like to wait in a line, WAIT. So the idea that, again, all of this is interesting and bite size. So you could be waiting in a line for something, or you could be just occupying a little bit of your time or doing a little bit of something with somebody. So her new rebrand is weightlifting, taking stuff that you're using to make your time better spent. Again, looking at these communities who we're serving, but not stigmatizing them by calling them one thing or another. So a big shout out to her as well, before I forgot.
Wow. I'm about to let my husband go on with his day because he is the producer, D. Scott Smith, motivational listener. Laurette, I would love for you to just say as quickly as you can. I hear that there is like a whole bookshelf of things that you are part of. Go.
I guess there are at present 30 books that are the broad categories are books for veterans, 4 books, books of faith, a variety of non-denominational faith traditions, Judaica, Christianity. People lean into that, so that's really people are loving that. I've got books, as I said, that are based in poetry. Let's see, picture books, which aren't your traditional picture books that are just a labeled image. These are nostalgic pictures with around a theme, and that have, let's say, a proverb or a pithy saying or words of wisdom, something that is evocative of the past and that people, get a kick out of and that they can relate to, and that it either looks like a dog they had when they were growing up, or they remember the penny candy, or any of the different touchstones that are there. And so there are those 5 broad categories. And what we haven't touched upon was all of what we're doing, particularly Anne's with Reminisce and my books. As Tavi said, we can use them over and over, which is great. But when you have people that are in palliative care or hospice that are non-ambulatory, non-verbal, very late stage, to be able to read aloud to, and there's some great poetry in Mirador as well, and some great prose. You can read aloud to a loved one and give them that peace in their heart. All they want to do is hear the sound of your voice. And as Barbara Carnes, who was a hospice pioneer, end of life pioneer, and Gabby Jimenez say that the last 5 days, week, 2 weeks, however long it is that your loved one is on hospice, those are the bonus days. You need something to bring in because you're all sitting around, you've come in from all over the country, sometimes all over the world, and you are longing for something that can connect you. So sometimes a good old fashioned short story or a poem or just a bit of prose, or to look at some beautiful imagery that is evocative of where your loved one grew up or what was very meaningful to them. These are all things that we're providing. These are resources that are developmentally appropriate, that are joyful, and that are certainly, there's a great, great selection, and we're just bringing in a little bit of beauty. And I think we're really encouraging one another, and we're upping our game. I think every book, every every magazine, every edition, because it kind of it's like an incubator for these great publications, and we're definitely, I can speak for myself, inspiring one another, and it's just a nice place to be. And I think that people in care and people that are aging in place, everyone, young and old, can connect, and it's something that is a little gift. It's not always going to be the supermarket bouquet, or I used to bring my mother-in-law cold pizza. Those are wonderful. A box of Puff Plus tissues. My mother-in-law loved those tissues and put them in her sleeve. These publications are, you can slip them in your bag, get on your way, and go see your person and enjoy yourself. And they'll certainly enjoy themselves too. So,
Tave, are you dumpling?
Do I tell her, Nikki? Do I tell her?
I mean, she's
Really?
been so nice.
I'm curious. Tell me what you think is dumpling like about me? What makes you think dumpling is the word?
I feel like in the very, very first comic strip, you were the first one to talk, and Oh, then that would make you chicken. What came first, the chicken or the dumpling?
This
I
is a
just
question.
have to say goodbye. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Don't tell anyone because they'll have to get Mirador and decide for themselves. So
Chamomile
thank you,
syrup latte.
Lorette. Thank you,
Thank
Nikki.
you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. The
I
aging
hate for this to
network.
end.
Bye, everybody.
This has been a rich time.
We all want to